Modern Horizons 3 might have been cracked for Modern, but it's been absolutely overpowered for Commander 2. Jake, I feel like every single day somebody goes, wait, have you seen this card from Modern Horizons 3? This will be great in the 99 of your Commander deck, young whippersnapper. Get out there and wagon wheel on down to the Cracker Barrel and grab yourself a piece of cheese.
Who are you?
I don't know what any of that was.
That was the most brilliant thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't know what you did.
I don't know what it was.
That is... You sounded like a character from an Academy Award nominated movie or possibly an Academy Award winning motion picture.
Thank you.
And today we're going to talk about the Commander cards that you missed. Cards that are generically good for your deck that might seem like they have a specific synergy with something else, but they're just good in general.
Best intro ever! As an enormous thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, we have gotten you a bunch of bubbles. Look at all these bubbles. They're all for you, patrons. They're all for you. Everybody grab one. Don't take more than one, please. Jake and Joel are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your cards on the internet.
Conduit.
Drip Shop, the best place to find us. Live selling, auctioning, giving away tons of stuff. Go follow us over on Drip Shop. TCG Player, of course, the official online store of Jake and Joel or Magic. If you're buying
TCG
singles
Player.
over there, make sure you use our affiliate link. Almost forgot the name of the thing.
Also, Dragon Shield for protecting your cards.
Shield.
Moxfield for sorting your cards, sorting your decks, and also MTG Stocks if you want to track the long-term price of your cards. We appreciate all of our sponsors and, of course, our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. I don't know if you've ever heard us say that, power the channel through Patreon, but we're just starting that today.
Go check it out. We've got cool perks at every tier. Let's talk about Commander cards you missed.
We're going to start with Eldrich Immunity. I actually just won a game this past weekend using this card. I cast the Desolation Twin, which wasn't a stock card in the deck, but it's a 10-10 Eldrazi that brings the 10-10. Our buddy at the table actually had something on the board that gives everything double strike. And so I was able to essentially get in with Eldrich Immunity and give them protection from all colors. And we just kind of like snuck in with massive damage in the air. Something was giving them flying in the air as well. So yeah, it was just it's a very strong card. It's a versatile card. You could kind of use it as a way to protect your stuff, or you know, we know how protection works. Protection can also get you through a clogged line as well.
Yeah, this set had a lot of specific cards in it, very niche Commander cards that will be strong. We tried to aim this list more generic, cards that we think will work in more than just like one archetype or one specific commander. And I like the upside on Eldritch Immunity, Jake. I think that this is wider applicability than just a colorless deck or an Eldrazi deck. And then with that overload, having each creature you control gaining protection from each color until end of turn. All you got to do is find one colorless mana to be able to cast this. Do note that you can't like pay a red and pay into this and be able to cast this. It has to be colorless mana. However, I don't think that's as big a restriction as it once was. Lots of non-basics that everybody is running of all power levels also create a colorless. And so I think that this card is going to be one of the sleepers in the Commander only cards. People are going to be finding this over the next 2-3 years and forward going, wow, this is way better than just a colorless or an Eldrazi card.
It's also Soul Rings, Signets, all sorts of, all our mana rocks are allowing us to do that. So for one tap of a Soul Ring, we have the 2 wastes covered for this, and then we only need to pay 4 more mana. So yeah, it's a very strong card. It isn't just specific to Eldrazi, which is why it's on the list.
Angelic Aberration is another one that's not specific to Eldrazi. We think it's got wider applicability. A white and 5 for a 4/4 flying vigilant Eldrazi angel with Devoid, which means it's colorless. It doesn't technically count as a white card, though it does work with the Commander color identity rules there to go in your white decks. When Angelic Aberration enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of creatures, each with base power or toughness 1 or less. Create that many 4/4 colorless Eldrazi angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance. Jake, white and red have a lot of creature token decks. White and black have a lot of creature token decks that also have to do with sacrifice. White and blue, there's just so much 1/1 creature token across pretty much any combination that you want to create. Being able to sacrifice those to turn them into 4/4s, especially in a color pairing like red, which could potentially give everything haste. This is a pseudo finisher, right?
Absolutely. Just speaking from the Eldrazi deck again, because it's 5 color, I run Fervor. I run Temur Ascendancy. So not only when I'm casting Eldrazi am I drawing cards, but they also have haste.
Right.
You got Rhythm of the Wild. You got Anger. There's a lot of different ways that you could give stuff haste. So yes, being able to, for example, you know, this is a finisher in Azlask, which is the Lieutenant Commander from Eldrazi Incursion, which just goes wide with spawns. So if I have haste in there in 10 spawns, all of a sudden I'm playing Angelic Aberration. We're going to sack all those spawns. We're going to turn them into 4/4 angels and then swing through in the air with haste. Yeah, that's a pretty backbreaking move.
Yep, I think that Aristocrats decks will want to take a look at that. Obviously, creature tokens, I think it's going to be a sweet card going forward.
Next up, we have Silver Quill Lecturer, 1 white, 4 other for a 3/3, and creature spells you cast have Demonstrate, which is an ability that is whenever you cast a creature, you can copy it, and an opponent is going to get to copy it as well. So we will play our Silver Quill Lecturer, and then anything after that, we're going to get massive value. It's also kind of a political card as well.
That's one of the reasons I like it. This is a card I've talked about. I haven't yet found the show that I love it in, so I can't make a solid recommendation of a commander yet, but I know I love this card. Demonstrate has been very good to me. I've used the Reanimator Demonstrate spell since it was released, and people always get wide-eyed when I cast it. They're like, oh man, you're returning 2 things, I might get to return 1. With Silver Quill Lecturer, you're not going to miss as much or at all, because you're always going to be playing the creature, copying your own creature, and giving an opponent a copy. But like you said, hey, do you not want to attack me next turn? Cool. I'll also give you my Avenger of Zendikar. I'll have 2 Avengers. You can have 1, and we'll all be making plants. I just think that this card, for a creature lover, this is such a cool card, and I'm really excited to play with it once I find the right shell for it. Jake, copy land could go in quite a few shells because, man, are there a lot of lands that if we could just run 2 of them in Commander, things would be broken. That's what this does. 1 blue, 2 other. You can have copy land enter the battlefield as a copy of any land on the battlefield, except that it's an enchantment in addition to its other types. You want to copy your super powerful land? Jake, you want to enter this as a copy of Dark Depths? Extra Dark Depths copies? Yeah, sure. Let's get our Thespian stage online. Start rocking some Merit Lages. Copy land, I just think, is going to go in a lot of decks going forward.
Yeah, you know, even if you need it for something very niche, like someone already has a Bajuka Bog, right? And you just need that in that moment.
Yeah.
It works for that. There's so many lands that have specific abilities, or, you know, someone might have a land that's going to allow them to like dig and scry or discover, and you might need that. There's so many different ways to use this. I do like that they held it back a little bit, making that land an enchantment, so it's just going to die to enchantment removal and stuff like that. I think that that's fair. Yeah. We know how good copy spells are, and so this is one of those cards that's also on what we would call the Jake and Joel's fine wine list, which maybe we need someone to come up with a nice like logo for that. But yeah, a card that gets better with time, a card that ages well, and the more lands that come out, the better copy land becomes.
Also relevant that it is a ramp spell in a color that does not ramp lands. You could potentially, in a deck without green, cast this on turn 3 and basically have that 4th land on the battlefield, and you're ready to go to turn 4, play another, you're at 5 lands and you're ahead. That's what that kind of ramp could provide to a deck that basically isn't in green and couldn't just do it automatically, right?
Yeah. And now we have another extremely strong Eldrazi spell that reads, when you cast this spell for each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature that player controls. Till end of turn, untap those creatures. They gain trample, haste, and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. It also has trample, haste, and Annihilator 1, which means when you swing on the attack, your opponent is going to have to sacrifice something to that Annihilator. This is one of those cards that, even though it's a glass cannon, right? It's a 7/2. I don't even care about that toughness being 2. It has everything you want, all the fixins that you want. You wait for the right moment to play this, and it can be an absolute blowout for you. And yeah, dude, I mean, it's just so busted. It's so busted.
This is what I want to be doing for 7 mana, though. I can't tell you how just thrilled I am that this says when you cast this spell and not when it enters the battlefield. We're not going to have to deal with this thing being reanimated. It's got to be cast. It's got to be cast. You can't put it onto the battlefield with some kind of sneak and show. You got Hideous Taskmaster, must be cast. The trigger comes from the cast. But yeah, crazy blowout card potentially. Exactly 7 mana's worth of ridiculousness. Love all the keywords on here.
And make sure, if you are in playing this, it might be a good idea to have an Ashnod's Altar or a Phyrexian Altar. That way, when you get done with that attack step, before giving all those things back to your opponents, just sacrifice them for mana, play something else big before the end of your turn, and now not only have you hit everybody with their stuff, but you've also removed all their stuff by taking this. So you could essentially like play this, take their stuff, even before attacking, just sack their stuff if you needed to. I don't know what situation you would want to be in where you're sacrificing stuff before you swing with Annihilator. But yeah, this is a very strong card and so appropriately priced. It's very easy to play something for 7 in Commander.
Yeah, I like that card. Kith I like a lot too. This was the Lieutenant Commander in the Energy deck, and we don't typically put Lieutenant Commanders on here because they get so specific. This one though, generically good for artifact decks. It itself is an artificer. It fabricates 1, so it's either going to be a 4/4 or make you a 1/1 artifact creature token, which that's probably what you're going to want to be doing with this type of deck. But it works in a populate shell, it works in a proliferate shell, and that has got a wide range of coverage. I think the only thing holding this card back is that it's 3 colors and not 2. So it's going to go in fewer shells. This is pretty much like a Jeskai or a 5-color deck. This is not, I don't run into, I guess Brea is the 4-color artifact deck. This automatically goes in for sure.
Yeah.
But giving all your other non-token creatures fabricate 1 as well, and then just being able to pay 2 tap and either populate or proliferate, insane amount of value. Really good dwarf here.
Shout out to this card. It shows up in every single box of Modern Horizons 3 Collector and Play boosters.
Yeah, I feel like I did pull 3 or 4 Kith famed Mechanist, but
I've got my Kiths over here.
Yeah, it's going to be good in a Jeskai artifact deck. I know that much.
That's right. And now we have Sawhorn Nemesis, 1 red, 3 other for 2/4. When it enters the battlefield, choose a player. If a source would deal damage to the chosen player or a permanent they control, it deals double that damage instead. I love effects like this, like Furnace of Wrath, City on Fire, that kind of stuff. It falls right into that kind of vibe. Or as the kids say, it's giving something, right?
It's giving Punisher. It's giving Rakdos Punisher.
It's giving Punisher vibes. Yeah, so this is a very strong card, very fun. I like that 4 toughness. We talk about 4 toughness all the time. It gets it out of a certain range of removal. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Nice little dinosaur here. Wouldn't want to mess with it. Looks like it could probably rip my arms off.
4 mana is so low to pay for a doubling effect, even though it's on 1 player. I mean, Karavik deck, this feels like one of the few creatures that it would want to consider because all of that stuff is getting doubled. You just choose the person with the highest life total when this ETBs or whoever's your biggest threat to come back. And suddenly everything against them is being doubled for only a pip of red and 3 other mana. Seems like a really good rate to me. And with it being a dinosaur, I also know that people who want to play the dinosaur deck are always going to be looking into this. I mean, this is a must run in that deck for sure.
Kind of cute and political card as well, because if we say, hey, you swing at Joel here,
right,
you're going to get double your damage.
Exactly.
Don't you want to do that instead of swinging at me and you're only going to get regular damage?
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking to, you before you go for the opponent that is way ahead. And I'm like, Jake, can you attack? You're like, yeah, not much though. I'm like, cool. Now all of it's doubled. There you go. Yeah, really cool. Love that kind of card. Tempt with Mayhem is another one. These tempting offers, I think the generic rule is like never take it. That's what you're supposed to do, is never do it. But sometimes you do it, and sometimes it gets crazy. Go check out our Commander game from Modern Horizons 3 Precons. This card has an enormous feature at the end. Tempt with Mayhem is red 1, instant speed. Choose target instant or sorcery spell. Each opponent may copy that spell and may choose new targets for the copy they control. You copy that spell once, plus an additional time. For each opponent who copied the spell this way, you can choose new targets for the copies you control. Against like a spike pod, you're going to pay 3 mana to copy a thing. It's 1 more mana. than a typical fork type ability.
Reverberate, right?
Right, exactly. But that off chance that somebody's like, well, I kind of want a free spell. I want a free removal spell. Cool. I get another removal spell. No worries. I think that this is a really fun card, not a CDH card by any means, but just the fun level here can't be understated.
Yeah, whenever a card makes my head hurt, that typically tells me that it's probably a good card.
Yeah, having to think through that one, having to think through the Eldrazi commander triggers. There's a lot to think through with these decks.
And I'm so happy I get to tell you about Tarmogoyf Nest, because this one is so easy and straightforward to understand.
There it is.
1 green and 2 other, we're enchanting a land, and that land has 1 green and 1 other tap, create a Tarmogoyf token. What do we know about Tarmogoyf? Tarmogoyf has it comes in as a 0/1, but it counts all permanent types in your graveyard, or all graveyards, and so you're able to get a 5/6, or in this case, because we have Kindred, which is a new, as you can see here on the Tarmogoyf Nest, it does say Kindred enchantment. It is worth noting that the words Kindred and Tribal are both counted separately.
Yeah.
So if you do have a card like that says Tribal instant, for example, something like Tarfire, then that is going to be counted in the graveyard alongside Kindred. So Tarmogoyf actually, I think, has it could get up to 7/8 these days. I don't know. Someone in the comments who's going to know more, but I'm pretty sure Tarmogoyf can get up to a 7/8, maybe even an 8/9 if I had to guess.
I know they can get big. We got brutalized by Tarmogoyfs by this deck. I haven't played this deck or dug into a Tarmogoyf deck in a long time, so I don't know off the top of my head what is the top math or every little intricate keyword that could be on there nowadays. I'm sure comments are going to let us know. But y'all, aura decks, enchantment decks, this is just such a shoe-in for 2-mana shoot Tarmogoyfs all over the battlefield. That is a fantastic rate.
Yes, and if you have something that lets you untap this so that you can use it again and again, anything like that, like a Twiddle, or that's a much better way of saying it. Seedborn Muse, a Wilderness Reclamation, that kind of stuff that's going to allow us to use it again and again. It's very good.
I just love it as an aura. It's just such a fun aura. Now we have a creature that's definitely up my alley, Bloodbraid Challenger. A green, a red, and 3 for a 4/3. Cascade, haste, and escape, a 5, and exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. The escape is what puts this over the edge. This is Bloodbraid Elf plus a mana. This is Cascade for 5, Elf Berserker, relevant creature types, and then the escape. The fact that it can come back, Cascade
for
again.
only 3.
Right.
For only exiling 3 other cards, that's such a fair escape cost. Paying 5, that's a little bit steep, but you get so much value from this. They had to make Cascade better because of Discover. They were like, well, we really got to put something on this card that puts it over the edge. No one's just going to play something that's a simple Cascade for 5 these days, right? Needs to have escape.
Aggro decks in Gruul, Elf decks, Cascade decks. Obviously, I think there's a lot of places where Bloodbraid Challenger could potentially land.
Now, what I like is when I play a big dragon and I get an extra dragon. But what's even better is when I play a big dragon that brings an extra dragon and it has Encore, meaning that for 8, you're going to cast this and exile it, and you're going to get 3 of these Broodmate Tyrants, 1 for each of your opponent, if you're in a full pod, right? Saying nobody's dead.
For sure.
But then they're also going to bring a bunch of tokens with it. Could you imagine if you had a doubling season? Oh my God.
The over-the-top piece of this is the Encore from the graveyard.
Yes.
It's already a 7-mana 5/5 flyer that brings a 5/5 flyer with it. So you got 10 power flying for 7 mana. Then you can pay 8 mana once it does die. And like Jake said, you exile it from your graveyard. You create a token version of it for each opponent. That tyrant has to attack that opponent this turn, which it's going away. It's getting sacked at the end of the turn anyway. You might as well just swing, even if it's going to run into a 6/6. But like Jake said, those token Encored versions also bring the token 5/5 with it, which it leaves those behind. There's no caveat in Encore about you got to sack anything that came with it. Just the one thing. This is a hell of a dragon, dude. So Jundy.
It is the Jund dragon.
Right.
For 8 mana, if we're in a full pod, for 8 mana on the Encore, we're effectively bringing 30 power onto the battlefield. 15 of it is going to get sacrificed, and we're going to have 15 left over.
Yep.
I want 15 power for 8 by itself. That's like, we're getting into best of the best Eldrazi kind of power and toughness for that kind of return at that point. This is extremely strong, dude. And yeah, anything that's going to, you know, double those tokens, which is very easy in these colors.
For sure.
It's that much stronger.
Dude, play Terror of the Peaks and then 8 mana, kill an opponent. That's 30 damage.
Yeah.
You've got 30 damage to shoot wherever you want. Clean up the board perfectly.
Warstorm Surge.
Oh my God.
Just have a Warstorm Surge.
That's what I'm saying. This card in particular, just insane.
Yeah.
It's an ETB too, so this can go in a Reanimator shell. It's just so fun. This is my kind of card. This is so my kind of card.
A lot going on here.
Yeah. Exterminator Magmar has a lot going on too because it wants to copy your spells, a red, a black, and 2 for a 5/3 Phyrexian construct. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single non-land permanent an opponent controls. If another opponent controls 1 or more non-land permanents that spell could target, you choose one of those permanents, copy the spell, and the copy targets the chosen permanent. Jake, all of my removal spells are now 2 removal spells. Plus, if Exterminator Magmar gets destroyed, no, it didn't.
Regenerate.
Crazy.
They put the most pesky ability on this with Regenerate. Wizards of the Coast doesn't even like Regenerate because of how annoying and clunky it is and how difficult it is to answer. Yes, I mean, I don't really have anything to say about this card other than what the shit were they thinking?
It's insane.
This one is stupidly good.
Yeah, it's really insane. It's crazy that 2 Karavik cards, I think that this is also a potential creature you would want to run in Karavik depending on like how much
it's an Imskir card,
specific
100%.
Targeted removal. Oh my God, yeah, 100% Imskir card. I just think that this is going to find a lot of homes. Right now, just sitting here, name 2 Rakdos decks, and we've both been like, all right, yeah, it probably goes in there. So find a home for this.
Yeah, because turns out if you're in Rakdos, you're probably playing a lot of removal anyway.
Yeah.
For the player that loves interaction, I'm sure they want to just make this their commander.
Dude, Go for the Throat is now 2 Go for the Throats every single time. Yeah, deal. Yeah. I would love to rule 0 this as my commander. I'll take it.
Chaos Warp is now 2 Chaos Warps.
Exactly.
I mean, Sphinx of the Revelation. 1 blue, 1 white, 3 other for 4/5. Uh-oh, it's an energy card. Flying lifelink. Whenever you gain life, you get that many energy counters. And then for 2 blue and white, we can tap it and pay X energy to draw X cards. The reason this card is on the list is because it's got everything built into it. You don't have to depend on the energy shell. Every time this cracks in for 4 damage in the air, you're getting not only 4 life from the lifelink, but because of that life gained, you're getting 4 energy counters. And then you're able to spend any amount of energy to draw X cards if you pay for this ability. So if you are gaining a lot of life, if you've cracked in once, you're going to draw 4 cards if you want to pay all of it. If you cracked in 3 or 4 times, you're going to be drawing 12 or even 16 cards if you want to play all your energy. It's an extremely strong card. And yeah, I mean, lifelink can't be understated. Lifelink is so valuable in a game of Commander.
Especially +4. And this can go in a life gain shell. This doesn't have to do the life gaining itself. It doesn't say when Sphinx of the Revelations lifelink causes you to gain life. It says whenever you gain life, period.
Right.
It feeds you the energy that you then get to turn into cards. 3 mana tap. You don't have to invest anything else besides the energy that if this is just in a generic life gain shell or you just want to use it as a strong artifact creature that can draw you some cards, you're not using that energy on anything else. It's 3 mana, tap it, use the resource you're gaining passively already, turn those into cards. I love this card. I just think it's such a cool self-contained use of a mechanic that can also appear in other decks. I really love when that happens.
It's such an Oloro card, dude, now that I'm reading it.
Right.
It's like such a massive Oloro card. I mean, anything that's in these colors in life gain is going to want it.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's such a great payoff for that. Planner Nexus is every non-basic land type. It taps for a colorless and you can filter a mana of any color through it. The thing is that right now, this card is already fairly impactful. I don't think it's like busted out 100% yet, but talking about the fine wine list, non-basic land types get added. You have to go back and re-look at Planner Nexus again through the lens of Commander and again through the lens of Legacy. Every single time another non-basic land type is printed. Now be aware, Please don't mess this up. You can learn something by watching Jake and Joel or Magic. Planner Nexus says, is every non-basic land type. When you're looking for cards like Breeding Pool, Blood Crypt, those aren't non-basic land types. Those are lands that have 2 basic land types. This is really relevant for that new blue creature that you can tap it and return a land to your hand, draw a card, and then discard a card unless you returned a card with a land with a non-basic land type to their hand. So there's just a lot of weird intricacy and fiddly rules to land stuff. Just be aware that there's only a very short list of non-basic land types right now. And just because it is a non-basic land, like Planner Nexus that we're looking at, it doesn't necessarily mean it has a non-basic land type, which Planner Nexus does not. I just wanted to talk about that distinction for anybody that's going to play this card or run into this card over the next few weeks or going forward. Just be aware that non-basic land type is a pretty short list, and it's got to be on the card. Being a swamp mountain, that ain't a non-basic land type, even though it is a non-basic land card. Have I made that as confusing as I possibly can?
You did pretty good. You did pretty good. No, this card it's kind of like it's a sleeper. This is almost like a card on the list that we want you to have on your radar, because this is going to be one that just like it's like a fine wine. It's going to break out over time. People are going to figure out a way to like really get the most out of this card. You can also look up what the different non-basic land types are if you want to look at those. It's actually a shorter list than you would imagine. Just why a couple cards weren't included on this list that are starting to deal with that, but are still very niche.
Right. Like the blue creature that draws cards that I was talking about. I just think that's going to be one of the most misplayed cards from this entire set. Jake, Sunken Palace is a non-basic land with a non-basic land type. There you go.
This is a cave. Sunken Palace. So this is something that I'm guessing you're going to use maybe once or twice in a game, but when you do, it's going to be very impactful. And the fact that this is on a land, which is why it's on the list. It enters the battlefield tapped. It taps to simply add blue, but the big effect on this is for 1 blue and 1 other mana. We're going to tap this and we're going to exile 7 cards from our graveyard. Then we're going to pay, or then we're going to add blue. And when you spend this mana to cast a spell or activate an ability, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So whether it's a big ability on one of your creatures, like your commander, or whether it's just a massive, instant or sorcery spell that you want to play, this is going to be, or a creature enchantment. I mean, freaking anything. It's a
copy
spell.
Anything, right?
Yeah, it's extremely strong. It has amazing coverage and versatility. I can only imagine that this card is going to be a staple.
I feel like you're 100% right in that 1 use per game, maybe 2 if you are just like self-milling like crazy. But even 1 copy of a critical spell or ability, and that could be the game win for you. Anything that's going to let you double up on stuff in a singleton format, I always give a second look to. So Sunken Palace for me is going to be one that going forward, it just feels suddenly breakable. When that commander comes out that has to do with milling cards off the top of your library and copying your spells.
Yeah.
Damn, this is going to go in that deck. And a couple others between now and then.
I actually am very surprised to see that this is only $1. This seems like very low risk for something that is going to be.
The set is early. We're still early as we shoot this, and the commander set itself hasn't been like super explored yet. People are just, really digging into the main set at this point. And that's why we like to make this video early, because you've got cards like Sunken, you've got cards like Talon Gates of Madara. This is a gate, another card with a non-basic land type. And when it ETBs, up to 1 target creature phases out. You can use it on your thing, and your thing is suddenly not present. That means immune to board wipes, can't be targeted, obviously. It's just not there. But it's going to come back exactly as it was. It's not like it exits the battlefield, re-enters the battlefield kind of thing where it loses counters or auras fall off or anything like that. Phases is just goes away and comes back exactly as it is. With Talon, you can also pay 4 mana and put it right onto the battlefield at instant speed. That's an ability too, so it's not a spell, so it can't be countered. So you could potentially phase out your creature to save it from a board wipe for 4 mana, or they've done all this stuff. Equip, pump, double the power, give it trample. All right, I'm going to move to attacks. In response, pay 4, Talon Gates and Madara, phase your creature out. My turn? That'll tilt somebody.
Now, the last land we were talking about was only $1, but this one is creeping up on $20, and I'm not even surprised because what is going on here, like Jill said, you can't even interact with it. It's pretty cracked. If you return it to your hand, you can do it again. All of these things. Yeah, we talk about this all the time, but extremely strong abilities on lands. It allows us more flexibility in our decks, in our deck building. Because if we're running 36, 37, 38 lands, we know that in addition to our commander, we only have a finite amount of spots in the deck, right? So being able to put strong abilities on lands is so attractive, and that's why players are really gonna like this one. Anybody can do it.
You want to talk about flexibility? Exactly. Anybody. This goes in any color deck. There is no restriction here. It can just go in the deck. This card is crazy to me.
It's a get out of jail free card. You know, a lot of people were super low on something like, you remember Plaza of Heroes, the Dominaria card? You get to use it once and you give your commander indestructible.
The card that I now find myself building into literally every commander deck? Yeah, I know that card.
Yeah, you know, we were just talking about the previous land, which was, you know, you might use this once in a game, and you know, a lot of people would complain. You know, I remember when Plaza of Heroes debuted and people were like, oh no, you're not going to use it. You know, it's like, you know, you only get to use this once.
You stay on tap with 4 mana, really?
In a game of Commander, you know, you might get to only do something once, and that's going to be enough. And so, yeah, don't let the internet dissuade you from cool cards with big effects or cool lands with big effects, because they are very useful. And this one is no exception. Extremely strong.
Everybody whose names you're seeing here all enjoy a free extra video every single week exclusively on the Patreon. Jake, they all got sleeves with their choice of custom JAJAM dragon shields. It's just like the fun times don't stop rolling.
These are some very attractive names that I'm looking at here. These are some of the most attractive. I am going to put these names on the wall later, and I am going to look at them. Not going to finish that sentence.
Redacted! Go join the Patreon if you want to get involved with our crazy community.
Wow.
We love you all.
Beautiful these names are.
Yeah, I look like an insane person.
Wow. Yeah, you do.